because when they're forced to slow down, they've been bumping vehicles. Here we go, into here, where we see those incidents where innocent people are hit, injured, and even killed at this time, trapped in there.
And it looks like the officer is going to get out.
But at this time, it's going to, and this is a dangerous situation, and likely what will happen, even though they're directing the suspect what to do, it's unlikely that the suspect will just give up. They'll continue on here on Grand Avenue at Roswell in Ontario. Keep track of the lower third there, that location there on the bottom of the screen. As I said, cat and mouse there. He was only stopped. The suspect was only stopped, maybe trying a pit maneuver here, getting a little close. Here we go.
But again, the speed's above 35 miles per hour, Rick, and that's one of the indicators or one of the thresholds, correct, in terms of when you can do a pit maneuver, a pursuit intervention technique, as it's called, the pit maneuver. So this would be too fast.
Typically, yes. I mean, at times they will do it at greater speeds, but that is usually the threshold that they'll try to conduct that. That was the 71, the Chino Hills Freeway, which is the 71 and Grand Avenue. So it appears that the pursuit has made its way back to where it started. So it's staying in the same vicinity. But look at the speed. You could see the opposing traffic there, what's happening, and you could see how quickly this pursuit is moving. Really quick. Wow. Hit the brakes hard. Pit maneuver right here. Tried. It was a chance.
Got the
bumper damage there. There was possibly already some bumper damage because it looks like the vehicle, some of the bumper coming off right there. I mean, that was just a light tap, so it's unclear if some of that damage was caused by another incident, because we've seen this vehicle, Marla, hit at least one vehicle, and we heard that there was likely another one involved as well. But you could see in pursuit here, high speeds, 100 miles an hour, close to it at least there, with our Extreme Nav system. The bumper there trailing. Wow.
Right, so we're on Grand Avenue, coming up on Calle San Marcos in Ontario. You see not one blowing through another intersection here. Speeds in the 70s at this point. We almost saw the suspect hit 100 miles per hour on Grand Avenue. Rick, you mentioned Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Yes, that was the original agency that picked this up, but it did look like that was a police department cruiser. And look, gaining traction here. On the bottom of your screen here, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the worst case scenario in terms of the time of day. We're approaching 4 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon, and this suspect is just ripping through these surface streets. And there's a lot of vehicular traffic. We're coming out of that pandemic period where we saw much lighter volume than average here in Southern California. More schools are back in session. At least the younger kids are. There's people still out and about, coming away from school, out running errands because we have rain in the forecast, as I've been talking about, and we'll talk about on the later shows. But you could see a lot of damage to the vehicle. You could see that bumper just trailing on the back end of that sedan being pursued. Unclear how many suspects are in that vehicle. Obviously the driver. Unclear if there's anybody else at this time. They try to do, they meaning law enforcement, and look at that, coming up close, and again, 35 miles an hour is a threshold, but that right there is a situation where you can see, trying to bump it, but see, that's what happens across traffic there. That's the danger. But they want to bring this to an end safely. They want to get this guy or gal off the street as soon as they can because of the reckless nature of this pursuit, Marla.
Yeah, that was attempt number 2. It looks like number 3 is going to come up.
Number 2, here we go. This is a good spot because you got that island. Just missed him. Again, pursuit intervention technique. Back end of the vehicle, safe area where you're not going to spin that vehicle out onto opposing traffic and hurt an innocent bystander. And there's other vehicles there traveling in the same direction there on Grand Avenue, which is a major thoroughfare there through the Ontario area. Still on surface streets here. Unclear if it was ever on any freeways there, but through the Chino Hills area. Look at that bumper. Look at that bumper, Marla.
Hanging on by a thread, literally. Yes. So, and then the speed still hovering around in the 70s, of course. Front end damage, back end damage. This is a 4-door Nissan picked up this pursuit in Chino. The want at this point, we're still working to find that out. Involved in at least one collision along the way. Hence why you're going to see that front end damage. And then at least 2 attempted pit maneuvers to bring this to an end. by the cruiser behind. There's at least, if we had access to the camera, but it looks like now, Rick, that this officer is considering another pit, perhaps.
And there was some video that we shot from Skyfox earlier about this driver going against traffic, which was just so incredibly dangerous, where he narrowly missed people coming in the opposite direction. And we'll show that video to you now. But this is still on Grand Avenue out in the Inland Empire. And here it is. You could see in the upper left, no, the lower right there, you could narrowly missing that truck right there. Wow. Two vehicles there, opposing, again, so close. Yeah. So on the bigger box there on the right, that was earlier video. Upper left is what's live on our Extreme Nav. And you could see just the dangerous nature of this suspect. They're doing whatever they can to bring this to an end safely. So many vehicles narrowly missed. That could have been catastrophic. And these people don't know, Marla. They're going. They're just on their way, running errands.
Yep. It's a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, they're doing what they typically would be doing. So we're in the 70s still. We remain on Grand Avenue. Now we're still in the Ontario area. We do have that video. We do want to pull up for you in case you missed the attempted pit. So it's right here on the bigger screen here, the bigger monitor, the box. This was pit attempt number 1, and it was soon after they tried another one. But yeah, that is the danger, Rick. That suspect almost went into the oncoming traffic.
So now we're making our way back towards L.A. County, because now we're on Diamond Bar Boulevard. This pursuit has stayed generally close to the 60, the 57, out to the east of the 57 into Ontario. Chino, you saw some pedestrians there on the corner. Diamond Bar Boulevard, our Extreme Nav system right on point with the exact location into that intersection. Thankfully, a green light, so that there was no opposing traffic. But this is one of those pursuits, and I've covered so many of them, Marla, as you know, up in Skyfox for my 20-plus years, that you just feel that there's that energy that's, something bad could happen in terms of a collision, a really bad collision where some innocent person who has no idea what's coming up behind him or her on the road could be a victim in this incident.
So now we're in East San Gabriel Valley. This is a multi-agency pursuit at this point, coming up to another intersection, stopped. So we'll see what happens here.
And at times, the suspect gets agitated and starts bumping cars just to make his or her way through. At this time, we're not seeing that, but a lot of damage, tinted windows, unclear if there's anybody else. That black SUV pulling up a little bit, so now there's a little bit of space, a little bit of real estate, so that sedan could go off to the left, but no movement here. So let's see what's happening here. Now a little bit of movement, looks like perhaps pulling, and look at that close-up shot of the bumper. And we got our first shot of the suspect there in the driver's side. Unclear if it's a male or female. Now getting agitated.
Oh, my goodness.
Just another hit. Bam!
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Look at these innocent
And these people
here.
have no idea what's going on. And that's that looks like a law enforcement sedan right there, trailing him. That's an unmarked vehicle right there. Look at, you see that?
Yes.
And they're trailing this suspect. So dangerous here. Diamond Bar Boulevard, 60 miles an hour through moderate to heavy congestion. Bam! Oh.
All of these innocent drivers. At this point, Rick, okay, boxed in here. So now we have another collision that this, then there's the
unmarked car. I told you.
Car.
Yep, that was an unmarked vehicle. Guns drawn. Get out. Give it. Put your hands up. Bring this to an end. There's that white sedan just going, I'm out of here. Now you have this guy in the gray SUV who probably doesn't even know that this was a pursuit, maybe not, just
and now
getting on the phone, calling 911.
And he's seeing guns drawn.
Unbeknownst, to him or her, that this is a high-speed pursuit, and this is an incredibly reckless driver. And that car has been disabled just by the fact that he's collided with so many people. Now we got the sheriff's deputies on scene here. We're back in L.A. County. L.A. County sheriffs. You could see their uniforms are guns drawn at this point. This is the most dangerous point of these types of pursuits. You don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know the mental state of that suspect, if that suspect has a weapon. bottom line, that vehicle has been disabled, and it doesn't look like they're able to get out of there.
And my heart right now is with the innocent driver. Oh, okay.
Wow.
So
On the move now. Okay, and let's see if the suspect tries to. I think that was an LA County Sheriff's helicopter, by the way, that circled overhead. Guns drawn. That was the unmarked car I talked about.
Right.
LA County Sheriff's Department. Those are LA County Sheriff's deputies, those units, the SUV, the sedans, right behind there. And at this point, I got to suspect that the vehicle perhaps has been disabled enough, or they're just done. That suspect is done. It's like, all right, I got to bring this to an end. But we've seen it, cat and mouse. We've seen it before, Marla, where the suspect could, actually continue on his or her way. But you could see how much damage is done to that vehicle because of all the multiple collisions. How many vehicles did you count?
Easily 5.
Yeah.
Easily 5 vehicles, and that doesn't count the other earlier collisions that vehicle was involved in during this wild pursuit. So now we're close to Pomona Freeway there, the exit there, South Diamond Bar Boulevard and East San Gabriel Valley. What you're seeing on your bigger box here, this is the moment that led to the end of the pursuit while the suspect just barreled through traffic trying to get away. To no avail, thank goodness, at this point. But that was before running into, crushing the sides of at least 5 other vehicles.
And just looking at the vehicle now, it looks like there's some axle damage. You could see the front left wheel tweaked a bit there, Marla. So obviously, I would think that perhaps the car has been disabled enough just because of the recklessness of the pursuit. It's been damaged so much that it can't continue on. But now this could be a long-term standoff. The LA County Sheriff's Department right now, they're on bullhorns. They are telling this individual, give up, put your hands up, get out of the vehicle, clear instructions. And as we saw that LA County Sheriff's helicopter, when you see the green and white, that's LA County Sheriff's. When you see the black and white, typically that's LAPD. There's other agencies that use helicopters as well, but primarily if you're in a smaller community, you're going to see an LA County Sheriff's helicopter overhead in situations like this if your municipality does not have an aerial unit. So this is at a standstill now. And Diamond Bar Boulevard and the 60, Marla, that's very close to the merge of the 60 and the 57 there, a very busy area. What the officers and the deputies are doing now is setting up that perimeter, that line around this incident. And we talk about it with not just a police incident, but with fires. Looks like some activity there, and they're just trying to get everybody out of the way. And likely what they did was we saw the that gray SUV that was the victim of the last collision just take off. It's likely that what happened is that the LA County Sheriff's Department, the deputies said, hey, bail, get out. This is the end of our prison. Because otherwise, again, you don't know what you're dealing with. This suspect could be armed.
That's what I was most nervous about at that point in time. So I'm glad that unsuspecting poor driver who got rammed as a result of this suspect here was able to leave this scene, and hopefully that person didn't suffer significant injuries. And meanwhile, we have this standoff with LA County Sheriff's deputies. This is in the East San Gabriel Valley. And even as we zoom in closely, it's hard to, it looks like the suspect's rocking back and forth in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody's in the passenger seat. Can't tell if there's anybody in the back seat.
Right.
They probably have, better eyes, the deputies, so that they know what they're dealing with. But there's some erratic movement there by the driver. And we've seen an uptick in pursuits. And I will say this because I know I've covered LA for so many years. There's no question that we have seen an uptick in pursuits over the last year. And whether it's COVID times, whether there could be a lot that's been involved.
Right.
They may know more about this suspect, obviously, than we do. And again, you can see that the driver definitely is distraught. And here's video of how erratic this was. Look at this. Bam!
So I will say, oh, gosh. Yeah. And then this one coming up. This is the official first attempt at a pit, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I know we do have the video. We can pull that up for you. But, yes, I mean, aggressively, the law enforcement really tried to get this guy or gal to stop the best they could. I mean, this is it right here, the first pit maneuver attempt that spins it out, and this was the danger, almost into oncoming traffic.
Something's, hold on. Something's, I'm seeing a lot of debris. I don't know if they're rubber bullets. Possibly. It seemed like something was happening, and the windows there on the driver's side, and I don't know if that's damage from one of the collisions, but I saw some debris fly up that wouldn't usually if a vehicle was just stopped like this. Again, I'm just looking at the monitor here as you all are at home. There's still movement on the driver's side at this point, but you could see the windows there, Marla.
Yeah, it looks like it was peppered with, right?
It's unclear at this time if that occurred or not, but it appears that there is some damage on the driver's side passenger and front window there.
Okay, so we're hearing possible bean bags.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. Something non-lethal, and that's typically, and you saw that debris spout out, and that's what sheriff's deputies use at times to try to bring this to an end, just to get the suspect or suspects to get out. Unclear if this is a male or a female. We still don't, do we know the why?
No, I just checked. I just checked, and at this point we still don't know what in fact sparked this pursuit in the first place. Again, as far as we know, this started in Chino. Here we are, East San Gabriel Valley. We saw it go through Ontario. This is right at Diamond Bar Boulevard and the 60.
There's and up in the upper right there. If Skyfox was to widen out a little bit, you can see. I'll show you the non-lethal. There it is. See that more? It looks like more of a yellow-colored gun there. That on the far right. That's the beanbag. That's the non-lethal weaponry, and they have both. I mean, obviously they have to protect themselves. They don't know what they're dealing with in situations like this. They want to bring this to an end. Obviously, this suspect was driving incredibly recklessly. We saw it. Could have killed somebody, right?
Oh, easily.
Easily. Multiple people driving against traffic at rates. Oh, there it is again. Beanbag, some type of non-lethal activity there. I just saw some more debris, but you could still see some movement there. You could see the damage on the side windows there, and all the damage to. I think the axle was finally damaged by the multiple collisions that this sedan had with vehicles, just trying to do whatever they could to get away from police. Again, if you're just joining us, this is a high-speed pursuit, very high speed, very dangerous, that has come to a standoff situation here in the Diamond Bar area. Grand Avenue, Diamond Bar Boulevard, very close to the 60 and the 57, very close to the LA County border and the San Bernardino County border. That's why we've seen multiple agencies involved. We heard that it was LA County first that was involved. We're seeing them now, pretty much, Marla, as being more of a lead agency because they're the units that we're seeing immediately behind this vehicle. They've set up the perimeter, the line around this area, protecting anybody, keeping everybody away, so that they can bring this suspect into custody.
You know, Rick, this is the first time I think that I've covered a pursuit that a non-marked vehicle got involved.
Yeah, I saw that first up. As soon as I saw that four-door sedan, you know, they're unmarked, but they look, they look police-ish, and you can tell, and it's what I've seen from my years up in Skyfox. So, and that was the unit that really sort of came upon this. And is the lead sedan right there on the other side of the street, just to the right on the right there, if you could see on our Skyfox shot across that island, that rock island there, that brought this, helped bring this to an end. But I think that the vehicle was so disabled because of the multiple collisions. But it's the LA County Sheriff's Department now that is trying to bring this to an end. Clear, even though the windows are up and the suspect inside the vehicle there, the audio coming from those vehicles, trust me, is enough so that suspect can hear the demands from those deputies. And those deputies still have guns drawn, lethal and non-lethal. The one lethal is the one on the right there that has more of a yellowish color there that we believe is shot non-lethal beanbags. There it is again. If you see just a little bit of debris,
yep,
there it is. Bam, bam.
See it. Yep, right in the driver's side.
Yep.
Driver's side window.
And when I say non-lethal, if you get hit by one of those up close, it's gonna hurt. Could it kill somebody? Sure, it's possible, but it's not a bullet coming from a weapon. And what they're trying to do is because clearly they've made penetration into the
Right.
driver's side window there. So what
Yep.
they want to do is just please give up. We've told you more. They're shooting more there. And you could see the officer pull back. That you could see it almost looks like a toy gun. It's yellow. It almost looks like one of those water guns. But that's the beanbag, the non-lethal force. Still seeing some movement from the suspect there. And
You just wonder what it's going to take to get the suspect to actually open that door and surrender.
yeah, we don't know the mental state of these suspects. Clearly, they weren't in a good mental state to be running from police at such a high rate of speed, and knowing that, hey, not only could they kill innocent people, they could kill themselves in a head-on collision. You know, when you're going 50 one way and 50 the other, that's 100 miles an hour into a brick wall.
And Rick, I can tell you this: we are hearing that what's happening here is that the suspect is continuing to rev the engine,
Trying to move. Yep.
and as a result of that, deputies have called for the fire department to show up just in case the vehicle catches fire.
And that is a possibility. With all the damage that's been done to that car, you could see the front end damage there. I think finally what happened was that the axle, and there likely is, you know, some engine damage, and some of the components that allow a vehicle to drive have been harmed in such a way because of those multiple collisions. Look at the side swipe, the damage on the driver's side there, Marla, the back end, the bumper as we saw trailing. You could see the officers, guns drawn, lethal and non-lethal, a standoff situation, an incredibly dangerous pursuit that you're watching here live on Fox 11.
And not to mention, obviously, this is the main scene, but this suspect sideswiped at least 5 drivers during this pursuit and caused other collisions, at least one of those major collisions along the way. So all of those drivers are being tended to as well. You know, we certainly hope that that didn't involve any serious injury. And here we are in this standoff. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department in Diamond Bar, this pursuit standoff of this suspect behind the wheel of this 4-door Nissan. We don't know at this point what set this all off. First picked it up in Chino, saw this suspect drive extremely recklessly through the streets of Ontario, always staying on, as far as we saw, on the surface streets, Rick, but nonetheless, we saw speeds up to, close to, anyway, 100 miles per hour.
And against traffic. I mean, what we saw there was, I mean, this is one of the more violent types of pursuits, potentially violent, dangerous pursuits that we cover. When you have a driver that is driving at such high rates of speed, in and out of traffic, against the opposing flow of traffic. Now, I counted at least 6 holes in the driver's side windows there. Those likely are the beanbags, the non-lethal force. But again, when I say non-lethal, they come out of that gun strong enough to break through a driver's window. And I have to think at least those ones on the bottom likely had some impact with the suspect, the driver, that we're still seeing some movement from at this time. And as you mentioned, Marla, there's still some indication that this suspect is trying to do whatever they can to get the vehicle going again to continue the pursuit. But likely what we're not seeing from this shot is there will be units in front of that vehicle blocking it. So if it's to just to get going,
right,
and you can see people starting to look around, traffic behind. There's a lot of people. It looks like there's a Carl's Jr. there off to the right. A very busy area of Diamond Bar. This is very close to the merge with the 60 and the 57, Grand and Diamond Bar Boulevard here. A suspect, a standoff here. L.A. County Sheriff's Department. In L.A. County now, after going briefly into San Bernardino County, into the IE here, trying to get this suspect to give up.
Rick, we're going to take a look back at some of those moments that we were just talking about. A couple of those, at least 3 of them anyway, collisions, as this suspect tried to elude authorities when he got jammed up at a traffic stoplight. Look at this, just sideswiping recklessly, just jamming his way through. So we saw this over and over, Rick.
Yeah, and we're hearing from the desk. We're just trying to get as much information as we can to determine how this pursuit started. The suspect was involved in a couple of hit and runs, whether or not that was during the pursuit or prior to, and that may have initiated the pursuit. That people called 911 and said, hey, I just got hit by a vehicle, and this is the description, and then they caught up with the vehicle. They lit the suspect up, didn't pull over, pursuit was on. But that is a badly damaged vehicle, not just from hitting, sideswiping, bumpering into, or being hit from behind vehicles, including law enforcement vehicles, but also those holes that you see there. Those, from what we understand, are non-lethal beanbags that were shot from the LA County Sheriff's Department into the driver's side of that vehicle. And I'm not seeing as much movement at this time. I haven't seen anything, I don't know if you have, Marla, about any movement in the back seat. Clearly the front passenger side, it did not appear anybody was there. I still can't even tell if it's a male or female driving, just because of the tinted windows, and it looks like the individual is wearing a heavier hoodie of some sort.
But what's noteworthy, so, well, to your point, or you asked about the back seat, it's really hard to be able to answer that given those tinted windows. So you never know. There could be more than one person inside, but certainly from the windshield, we could only just see the suspect in the driver's seat. But those, do I officially call them, Rick, bullet holes?
They're beanbag, non-lethal, as the LA County Sheriff's helicopter circling overhead. They have good intel. They have better intel now, those sheriff's deputies, on what's happening there. Even though we can't see inside the back seat, they probably have better eyes on if there's anybody in there, because that will go into play in terms of how they're going to handle this and bringing this to an end, and if they feel it's just the suspect. But from what we're hearing, the answer to that, Marla, is that we believe it was non-lethal beanbags that were shot in there. And that is what and that is what they try to use to bring this to an end, because they want, and we have a ground shot now, as you can see, we have a ground photographer, guns drawn there. Look at how bad on the ground. You could see even more damage to the
multiple traffic collisions throughout this pursuit that stopped probably about 15 minutes ago at the top of the hour. Maybe it was about 4 o'clock when the suspect came to a crashing halt at as
we suspected, because you saw the driver of that gray SUV that essentially was right on the front end being rear-ended by this suspect, just sat there on their phone, calling 911, like I said, calling State Farm, Allstate, Geico, whoever their insurance is, trying to say, hey, I've been involved in this crash, and then all of a sudden heard a directive from the LA County Sheriff's Department, get out of there, because we don't know what we're dealing with. And then you saw the victim in that SUV just take off. That's exactly what happened. So here we are. We're in a standoff situation. We're hearing that the LA County Sheriff's Department has called in SWAT vehicles, the Bearcat, to essentially barricade the area and seal the area and push literally up. We'll see these Bearcats go right up against the vehicles that are involved.
Those are those armored vehicles.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Armored vehicles, armored officers that can handle situations like this. And they bring in crisis negotiators, because, again, the time right now, being that this vehicle likely has been completely disabled, is on the officer's side. So what they want to do, get out of your vehicle, please listen to us, we'll work this out. They do it in a calm way, and they're not doing it. And there was likely enough movement inside that vehicle by the suspect that warranted the officers to use the, quote, non-lethal force, the beanbags. And again, when I say non-lethal, I'm not saying that if you get hit by one of those beanbags, because you see the damage, those windows are tight.
Through that window, right.
They go through there. You can be severely injured, and I'm certain that individuals likely have been killed by that type of force. The bottom line is, though, this suspect was racing and running at such a high, reckless pace, evading police, evading the LA County Sheriff's Department, evading agencies in San Bernardino County, that warranted this type of action. Fortunately, we did not see a horrific head-on collision, but you saw it, Marla. I mean, it could have happened to multiple vehicles.
Oh, yeah. This suspect involved in, like we said, at least 2 hit and runs that set off this pursuit, and then only to sideswipe I'm going to say at least a half dozen unsuspecting drivers trying to make his or her way through various intersections throughout this pursuit that we covered, and then came to this intersection here, ran into somebody just sitting there at a red light. And fortunately, that didn't cause that person to ram the person ahead of that vehicle. So this is what we're left with, this standoff that's been underway for at least 20 minutes at this point.
There's the 60. Right off the 60 freeway there. This is very close again to the 60 and the 57, the far eastern edge of LA County, Grand Avenue, Diamond Bar Boulevard there. Those are all, the majority of those units, I believe, are all LA County Sheriff's Department units there. And we are now in a standoff situation. You could see all the people at the gas station there right off the 60 freeway. They're directing this suspect to give up, and they're not. Guns are drawn, lethal and non-lethal, as we call them, with the beanbags. And they just want this suspect to get out of the vehicle. At least the vehicle has been disabled, because we could have seen an innocent person, which we have, as you know, as we've covered, Marla, so many times in these high-speed pursuits, injured or killed.
Yeah, and then the reports that the suspect was continuing to rev the engine, and that caused deputies to take precaution and call on the fire department. We haven't seen the fire department show up yet, but just in case that vehicle was going to catch fire as a result of the suspect unrelentingly, pedal to the metal, trying to get this vehicle to move again, but it's clearly disabled, not going anywhere. And here we are, Rick.
Yeah, and again, SWAT, the Bearcat, the LA County Sheriff's Department has a separate unit. SWAT meaning it's an acronym for Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, and they have those armored vehicles, those Bearcats, that essentially are like tanks that you would see in a war zone. And the officers, the SWAT officers, are highly trained. They're very specialized, and they have their own armor to protect themselves. And that's what's been called out at this point, because this suspect is failing to yield still, even though the vehicle is no longer in any condition to drive. We heard that the vehicle was still trying to drive away, but there's enough damage to the front end, the engine compartment, the axle. You could see the bumper there, front and back end, and you could see, I count 6 holes inside the passenger side windows, both the front and back passenger side windows, because of those beanbags. That's what we're hearing, at least, that they were the non-lethal, the lesser lethal beanbags that were used to try to bring the suspect into custody.
Also worth pointing out that Diamond Bar Boulevard North, between the 60 and the 57, closed in both directions because of this police activity. So if you're in this area, please note that Diamond Bar Boulevard North is shut down between the 60 and 57 as a result of this. So yeah, multiple non-lethal rounds have been fired at the car. And you are correct. We are hearing from LASD that these are in fact those beanbags being fired. Rick.
And the 60 freeway is open, but Diamond Bar Boulevard, as you mentioned, Marla, right there at the 60 shut down, as are the on and off ramps, obviously, because it's just south of the 60 freeway there. Far eastern LA County here. And this pursuit, it appeared that the suspect may have been trying to stay in an area he or she was familiar with, because the Chino Hills area, where we heard that there was some activity there, is nearby, south of that location, down the 71. Here comes the crash video.
Yep.
Look at that, just sideswiping vehicles, hitting cars, no regard. Look at that, upending. Wow. And there's that unit, there's that unmarked unit. As soon as I saw that, and clearly that was a sheriff's unit that was trailing, hitting more vehicles there. Again, upper left there, that was earlier video that we shot from Skyfox of how reckless this pursuit was, and the larger box there on the right is where we are now, with those deputies, guns drawn, lethal and non-lethal.
And we knew that at one point this was a multi-agency pursuit, and we can tell you that it was San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies that were involved for a brief time, and now LASD is back to being the main agency handling this standoff here. The fire department just said to be on standby at this point, so just in case the suspect continues to rev that engine, and I would hate for that vehicle to catch fire, but that's why the fire department is on standby. And they do believe, Rick, that this suspect is the sole occupant.
Okay. And clearly, when we're looking now at those holes in the driver's side window, I'm pretty certain they would not have shot towards the back if that was the case. So that's good news that there's nobody in there, because you never know if there's somebody in there against their will. That you could see clearly tinted windows there, a lot of damage to the driver's side window. And the bottom line, when you see situations like this, the deputies from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, deputies in the Inland Empire, that San Bernardino County was involved as well. They tried to pull this individual over for whatever the want was. You could see the license there. We'll likely run it at our assignment desk and try to ascertain exactly who this vehicle belongs to. If it was a stolen vehicle, right at the 60 freeway, right there at Diamond Bar Boulevard, and the suspect still is not giving up.
And Rick, we do have some new vital information. Our Bill Malusian, who has a significant contact, of course, with LASD, says that the initial want was, in fact, a hit and run right in front of the Walnut Station, number one. Then the suspect hit a LASD vehicle down the road. Fortunately, the deputy is said to be okay. So they have been able to stop with the less than lethal, and they're stopping those beanbags rounds at this point, and they're waiting for the SWAT to arrive.
The Bearcat,
for the Bearcat.
Yep. The armored vehicle there. And so clearly driving recklessly, very recklessly, hit and run prior to starting the pursuit, and then continuing that trend during the pursuit, hitting a number of vehicles, multiple people hit, I should say. It didn't appear that there were any real solid collisions that may cause serious injuries, but still, how frightening that is, where this vehicle was trying, I mean, NASCAR driving. It was just to see this vehicle trying to make its way, the suspect, through narrow lanes with a lot of vehicular traffic, a very busy time of day here in Southern California, an uptick in traffic. And we could have seen a more horrific situation, especially when this suspect was driving against traffic, 60 miles an hour plus at times, and could have head-on collided with another vehicle and killed somebody.
Rick Dickert, you've done a great job with this standoff. We've been sitting here just watching this car with no movement really from that driver who's been sitting there with law enforcement surrounding him. We're waiting for action here for him to get out of that car.
Yeah, Alex Michelson, Christine Devine now joining our coverage. Our thanks to Marla Tejas, who's done an excellent job all afternoon long on this. We'll hear from Marla in about a half hour from now, but we continue to watch this standoff underway in Diamond Bar. And Rick, that new information that Marla just reported from our Bill Malusian, the fact that if this driver did indeed hit a Sheriff's Department vehicle, gives you a sense of why they were so aggressive in trying to stop this person.
Exactly. Obviously, when that's an officer-involved incident, and what started that, was it random that this individual was distraught and just came upon that sheriff's unit and hit it because it was in the vicinity? We don't know that at this time. As I had mentioned earlier, we've seen a tremendous uptick in the last year of these types of situations, of pursuits, of people who are being pursued, who are struggling. And we don't know the mindset. Obviously, the mindset of anybody who's driving like that is not in a good place. But there's mental illness involved. And we found that out with the suspect who carried on with one of the longest pursuits that we've ever covered here in Southern California. I know for me, that 6-hour pursuit, you remember, that went into the early morning hours. And we found out that individual was suffering from some very serious mental illness. And
well, it's hard to see the movement inside that vehicle, but you can see from time to time as we get ability to zoom in just a little bit. It's very blurry, but you zoom in, and you can see the person moving just a little bit inside that car. We're coming up on what would normally be a busy rush hour. We know with coronavirus pandemic, so many are working from home. But then again, we are seeing an uptick in traffic, it seems, during rush hour right now. And this is in Diamond Bar, so in case anyone's just joining us, this is what's happening here. Law enforcement there, and you see that vehicle there that is unmarked, that silver vehicle there by law enforcement. That is an unmarked law enforcement vehicle. What happened is this car hit another car, and Rick, that car was able to get out of the way. So right now, it looks like there's nobody in danger of being hurt. Law enforcement really, they have this covered.
Yeah, they do. They clear the scene there. They set up that perimeter, as I say, and we talk about it with fires. We talk about it with police incidents, terminations of pursuits, at least the vehicular component, where they want to make sure the area is clear of anybody being hurt, and they have that situation contained or a line around it. That's a deadly weapon, though, and a lot of people, you forget, but a vehicle's a deadly weapon, and if you use that, and I mentioned the mental state of somebody, regardless, that it's awful, because we're doing more and more stories on that, especially in these times, but it's still something that agencies like the LA County Sheriff's Department have to bring to an end. They have to get this individual off the street, because that person is in danger of hurting or killing somebody else.
And potentially in danger of hurting or killing him or herself as well. So if you are just joining us at 4:30, usually TMZ with our pal Harvey Levin would
Let's watch this right here, because this is where you talked about him weaving his way through other vehicles. And then right there, pushing
That's
his
the bumper
way.
car action.
Right? Look how
right
it's
there.
there.
Looks like
That's a carnival ride right there. And there's the unmarked unit I saw, and I said, that unmarked unit was boom, boom, sideswiping.
More cars hit.
There has to have been at least 10 vehicles that were damaged.
Wow. Can you imagine being those vehicles right there with that suspect trying to push his way through? How scary that must be for those other motorists.
And now we're back live, a ground shot. We got you covered here at Fox 11. We have our Extreme Nav Skyfox up in the upper left box there. Essentially force this suspect to give up. Unclear if that suspect has been injured, because those beanbags hurt, believe me.
Yeah.
And we say non-lethal.
And here's one of those guys carrying one of those less than lethal weapons that we see.
That's right. So they're directing this suspect. They continue. There is a loud audio presence there. Trust me, because I've heard and seen and covered these for so many years up in Skyfox, and know about the ground tactics, obviously, that suspect inside that vehicle has been told multiple times, please give up, open the door, hands up. They don't know if this suspect is armed or not. Bottom line, this suspect, we know now, has hit at least one deputy, and that deputy is going to be okay. And it started as a hit and run. This driver, this suspect, was driving erratically and hit a couple of vehicles prior to the, quote, pursuit, and continued that trend. And there they are. There's everybody with their phones and recording everything. I'm a little surprised that they're allowed to be that close, because the suspect's door on the driver's side there is only a couple lanes away. And they've tried to find out as much as they can about this suspect. They may be in contact with family or friends and know a little bit more about what they're dealing with. And once they get that information, the tactics change somewhat. No, he's not. He's been suffering from this. He had a
Right.
big breakup. He had something happen to him or her that is making this individual so erratic.
And you referenced that 6-hour pursuit that we talked about recently. In that situation, the driver was schizophrenic, and the police knew it, and that did impact the way that they went. So what you're hearing now is some audio from our camera on the ground. I think our photographer, Brian Shaw, is there. Let's listen in for a second so we can hear what it sounds like on the ground.
LA County Sheriff's helicopter circling 400 or 500 feet above. You can hear that. So they're watching from above. They have eyes on the vehicle differently, obviously, than the deputies on the ground there, because they could look in. They have the tools available with their cameras to look inside that windshield that isn't as tinted as the side windows are there that have been shot out. And again, if you're just watching this, if you're watching us on Facebook Live from across the country or across the continent, thank you for tuning in. But I counted at least 6+ holes there, right?
Can we take that full, the Skyfox shot for a second?
There we go.
Yeah, this really
is
gives you a good
insane.
sense of just how damaged
The vehicle
that
is.
car
Yeah.
is right now, and all of the different shots and the side of it. And what I was trying to get, and it doesn't look like it, I was trying to tell if the airbag had come out.
Doesn't
and
look like it though, right?
It's hard to tell when you look at that front if the airbag itself was deployed because of clearly all that front end damage.
But
And now as we come around, are we seeing any movement? Because we saw a lot of erratic movement
Yeah.
from the suspect, the driver, and I'm not seeing much, but
Well, we know those shots were less than lethal weapons used to, put those holes there in that window, but that still can hurt, and there's shattered
no
glass.
question.
And so you have to wonder
No
the
question.
status of the person inside
And-
that car and really physically how they're doing inside that car if they've been injured.
And Alex, you mentioned, I can't tell if the airbag was deployed at all, but
Yeah.
the damage, the side-swiped vehicles you could see on the driver's side there, that's from all the cars that, when I was saying demolition derby, NASCAR, bumper cars, where this suspect was doing whatever he or she could to evade sheriff's deputies. And the front-end damage, I think what finally did this vehicle in was probably some engine compartment damage because of that front end damage and the axle of the front wheels there.
Yeah.
That's something, that shot, isn't it?
I mean, it is. It's,
Wow.
It's like when you think of, totaled in a junkyard, you would think of this vehicle and just all the damage that it has sustained on this very dramatic ride through the streets of Southern California today. And as we get real close up, you can really get a sense of that damage. But what you really don't get a good sense of when we're looking at that picture is the status of the driver right now. Earlier, as Rick was mentioning, you saw the driver's hands sort of wildly gesticulating in front. The driver clearly agitated. Now we see it looks like almost no
Very little movement
from that driver.
That's
And
right.
you do have to wonder about the physical health, in addition to the mental health, but the physical health of that driver who's now been sitting there and all of those different shots in that driver's vicinity.
And paramedics, Alex, Christine, will be called out, and there's going to come a point where, and I've seen this, I've seen suspects who have shot and killed law enforcement, and I clearly remember incidents, and then seeing paramedics trying to revive
Right.
Sure.
that individual. So in the same sense, if they feel that this individual is injured, even though he was putting so many people at risk, or she, the paramedics will approach the vehicle with the help of law enforcement to aid medical.
Right. Here's my question. We haven't seen them approach at all, so you have to wonder what they perhaps know
No,
about
right.
this driver. Is this driver perhaps armed with a weapon? What is the state of mind of that driver if deputies do approach? It's going to be interesting to see how they do decide to proceed with this. And Rick, you covered some of the history of what we know, the little we know about this driver.
And because of the fact, it's not that every pursuit that comes to an end like this, that we see sheriff's deputies or the LAPD or any other municipality just open up with their beanbags. Like that's a bit rare.
That was such a dangerous pursuit, though.
So it was. That's the situation. And being that they felt that that driver was going to still, despite all the damage, revving the engine, as we heard, continue on. They're like, no, we have to end this, especially possibly getting on the 60. That's the on-ramp to Diamond Bar Boulevard on the 60.
And, according to our Bill Malusian's reporting, this driver hit a deputy.
That's right.
So they feel whenever word of advice for anybody in these situations, one way to really, really make law enforcement angry is to attack somebody in law enforcement.
One of their other deputies.
That everything kind of goes out the window at that point. And so this person showed that they were willing to target law enforcement, which made, I think, them even more willing to try to end this as quickly as possible.
And I think because we see things on social media and with the movement and the way that officers play out situations like this, whether it be a local municipality or a sheriff's department, a county sheriff's department like here, this suspect could have pulled over. And they were running for whatever reason, and they were endangering your mother, your father, your son, your best friend. And they could have killed those individuals.
Yeah. Well,
and you have to, and that's where I know there's been this push and pull against law enforcement and deputies. And sure, we've seen some horrific things. And we have to cover these things now in such a way that we're looking at what happened here and what needs to be done on a tactical level to bring it to an end.
And just last week, we covered the story of a pursuit that ended with an innocent driver getting killed. Right? And this family that was just grieving, and then all of a sudden their loved one who had gone to work that day, was driving home from work, all of a sudden is gone. So a lot of people do view these pursuits, let's be real, as entertainment.
They do.
They get excited, they talk about it on social media, they think of it like a video game. But it is not a video game. Real lives are at stake, and we see people die on the streets of Southern California that have nothing to do with it. That could be any person going out to drive, to pick up, right by a gas station, right by a McDonald's, right by Shell.
Your dad, your mom, your best friend, it's awful. And what do you do then? And some agencies, as we say, they back off. They go into tactical mode. They go into tracking mode, where they just use the aerial unit to follow that suspect, so that hopefully that the suspect will deep breath, slow down, and not pose the biggest risk. That doesn't happen all the time. So the bottom line, this was a very dangerous driver. He or she could be battling awful things, and we don't know that. But regardless, it had to be stopped.
I got to think there's a reason why law enforcement has yet to approach this vehicle. As we pushed in a little bit, we didn't see movement in the vehicle. So you have to wonder if they're waiting for some kind of further negotiator, if they're waiting to see if perhaps there is any more movement in the vehicle. Sometimes they would send over the dog and approach with the dog. Sometimes they'd send some kind of mechanical thing that can kind of look inside and check out the vehicle. But right now, you can see law enforcement, they are willing to keep this here at a standoff situation in Diamond Bar and not approach this vehicle. Now, we saw in that earlier video how desperately this suspect was willing to maneuver his way to get away from law enforcement, ramming into other vehicles, almost to the point of lifting up his own vehicle to kind of wedge his way through vehicles that were stopped at a light. So Fox 11 News here. This is our early edition of the Fox 11 News at 5 o'clock. I'm Christine Devine here with Alex Michelson. We've got Rick Dickert, who's just the veteran expert in Skyfox, bringing us perspective as well. That tighter shot there, hard to really see inside the vehicle, but there's not movement of a driver, making motions there. So wondering what law enforcement has as to information as to what the status of the driver is.
Right, and meanwhile, this standoff continues. We see a whole lot of law enforcement around. This is, by the way, by the Diamond Bar entrance to the 60. The northbound 60 to the 57 right now closed because of all of this and the proximity to all of this. As we've seen, this is near McDonald's, a Carl's Jr., a Shell gas station, all in the area, all now with a lot of people standing by with their cell phones trying to watch what happens here. This is really a wild pursuit, and hopefully we can get some of that video of the pursuit queued up again, and we can watch, if you're just joining us, get a sense of of how wild this pursuit really was. A driver who was very reckless in driving on the wrong side of the road. Here's some of that video. You get a sense of the driver driving on the wrong side of the road, nearly missing a big rig there, nearly missing so many vehicles. But a lot of times we talk about near misses, and unfortunately, Christine, during this, we also had some drivers who were hit during the course of this.
Alex, we've covered so many pursuits. I haven't seen one like this in a very long time where you have a driver. This we've seen. Drivers go on the wrong side of the road, but with approaching vehicles like that, so very scary. But it's what happens after this that continues to make this pursuit so very dangerous. And gosh, thank goodness none of those vehicles there were hit head on.
Right.
Can you imagine? That driver was not going at a slow rate of speed either. And then the pursuit picks up even more with speed.
Right, and we're looking at some of that footage right now. You see the driver going very quickly.
Ooh.
Boom, stops on a dime. But it doesn't work. The driver continues on. The law enforcement tries another pit. We see the driver continuing on through the streets here, driving 40, 50 miles an hour, which is kind of fast to try a pit maneuver. Negotiation specialists who spend their lives training for these sorts of situations may be able to help.
Well, we've covered many of pursuits that end in very long standoffs. So as we watch this, I'm thinking, I had a conversation just today with some retired LAPD officers who were talking about mental health and how much more they're focusing on handling mental health situations and crises in a different kind of way, in a way where, you know, there is training that handles somebody who's going through some kind of mental condition, which we don't know what the status is here. We don't know. But also, we got to keep in mind, all those deputies want to go home to their families tonight. So we don't know, does this person have some kind of weapon? Is the person conscious in the car? When they get out of the car, how are they going to react? Are they going to fight? So right now, it seems to be that deputies feel like they have time on their side to wait this out and handle this the best way possible.
And we've spoken as well with an organization we both have worked with, the D.D. Hirsch Mental Health Foundation, which is actively working with law enforcement in trying to have people that are specialists in mental health be a part of calls, be a part of some of these conversations. You know, so much, I think, is made about this concept of defunding the police, which there are folks, including Black Lives Matter LA advocates, who say that is the phrase, we want to defund the police, we want to abolish the police. But there are also a whole lot of other people in the middle, probably the majority of people in the middle, who say, look, we need to do some police reform. And part of police reform is working with some of these other agencies on mental health issues, on getting people more training, on getting more specialists involved, not defunding the police, but actually adding funding to some of these other agencies. And that is some of what we are talking about here, and that is what some of those agencies say has really been successful.
Well, we've seen often, Alex, in some barricade situations, like, not barricade, but situations like this, where you have those law enforcement, standoff, those law enforcement vehicles that can get up and close, those heavily armored vehicles,
the Bearcats,
that can move forward and look into the vehicle, get a better view inside the vehicle to see what's going on with that driver. And the driver has been identified as a male. Okay. So perhaps they're waiting for that Bearcat to make its way there. Sometimes it takes a minute to get there. And there's no need for these perhaps less protected officers to approach the vehicle. So this could be very well what's happening, where you might have one of those Bearcat vehicles pull up right up to the car, even block it in so it can't move forward or move backward to hit those officers, and get a better view as to what's happening there.
Yeah, because as you've pointed out, law enforcement, they got all the time in the world. You know, they can bring in reinforcements. They got a lot of people out there, and sometimes the safest strategy is just to wait it out because this suspect, you know, they can only be in there so long, and you got to imagine it cannot be all that comfortable to be in a vehicle that probably has a lot of broken glass around and cannot be in great shape. Maybe is making some noises because of all the different damage to the engine there. And so you would think that the person would want to get out of that vehicle, but you also wonder about their mental state right now as we bring Rick Dickert back into the conversation.
And crisis negotiators as well. They could be called out. Again, hopefully there's been some contact between the suspect and anybody that they're connected with, friends or family. Law enforcement have been in touch with them so that they know what they're dealing with here, but clearly a standoff situation. Again, this is Diamond Bar Boulevard, just to the south of the 60 freeway. Avoid that area. Diamond Bar Boulevard completely shut down, as are the on and off ramps from the 60 freeway. The 60 freeway is not being impacted at this time. All of those LA County Sheriff's deputies, guns drawn, lethal and non-lethal. You see the police tape. And what you're seeing now, too, which we weren't seeing earlier, it looks like they have cleared away some of the onlookers that were there as another unit rolls up here. As we await the SWAT unit and that Bearcat, that barricaded vehicle, LA County Sheriff's helicopter still circling overhead, watching this from above at this time. Several vehicles hit. We didn't see any horrific collisions, but we certainly could have, especially when that vehicle was traveling. That suspect, and we believe it's just the one suspect inside this vehicle that was being pursued because of hit and runs, because of erratic driving. And one of the hit and runs involved an LA County Sheriff's unit, the Walnut Station, not far from this location. And the suspect did stay, Alex and Christine, in this general vicinity.
Rick, you said what if. I mean, the what ifs are abundant here. This driver could have continued on driving if the vehicle was able to still go. The driver could have gotten out of the vehicle and make a run for it where there are people around there, the restaurants that are right there on that street. Also, when it hit those vehicles, was boxed in on the streets where other vehicles were right there. That driver could have gotten out of this car and tried to, carjack somebody else. So the what ifs on this one were really abundant.
A lot. And you just look at the condition of that vehicle. That's because that suspect sideswiped, rear-ended, was hit from behind from an LA County Sheriff's unit in trying to stop this pursuit because it was so dangerous. And they took on that tactic of trying to get this suspect to give up, and the suspect wouldn't, and we believe that's when there was those bean bags that were shot at the suspect to try to just bring this to an end, because even though the vehicle's in the condition it is with all that front-end damage, obviously are likely some engine compartment damage, some of the important fluids that push a vehicle to move. The axle was likely damaged. They didn't want that vehicle to go any farther because there were a lot of what ifs, as you said, Christine, but thankfully from what we saw, there wasn't that horrific head-on crash where that vehicle was going 50, 60 miles an hour against opposing traffic and almost hit a vehicle in the other direction.
Let's look here. You see the Sheriff's Department vehicle move forward there.
Yep.
I'm wondering if they're trying to get a better look inside that vehicle or perhaps move out of the way and be replaced by some other kind of...
And that is a SWAT officer, even though we're not seeing the Bearcat, but you could see that the heavily armed officer there on the driver's side of that vehicle. So it looks like what they're going to do is that, essentially tighten up that perimeter, bring in vehicles, and surround it so that they can make entry into the driver's side and pull that suspect. And again, we believe that it's only the suspect inside that vehicle. Pull that suspect out and bring this to an end. Diamond Bar Boulevard there, completely shut down, north and southbound sides, south of the 60 freeway. 60 freeway is open. On and off ramps there are blocked. Stay away from the area. The crime tape, the yellow tape there, the perimeter has been set up. They're pushing people away the best they can. You don't want to be in any crossfire because we don't know if that suspect has a weapon.
But look at the people there on the street. I think law enforcement would be thinking, please just go home, go away, because we don't know the status of this suspect. It's a dangerous situation. If you saw the pursuit, you would know how dangerous a situation it is.
And at the same time, Christine, we've seen situations where there are crowds that gather, that get agitated. And they have to deal with that as well because they don't particularly agree with the tactics that they're seeing here. And some of them, in some situations, we've seen that people who even know the suspect will come on scene, obviously, and they're emotional because it's their brother, it's their father, it's their son who's involved in the incident. And they have to deal with that as well. So the LA County Sheriff's deputies are doing the best they can to get that suspect out of there, to yield medical aid if is needed. And I would, just looking at the windows and those bean bags that that penetrated through the driver's side there on both the front and back windows there, probably was impacted somewhat.
Yeah. Well, we're looking here now at law enforcement, and just minutes ago, they moved that sheriff's vehicle closer to the suspect vehicle. We don't know if that suspect vehicle is actually disabled. Like, could that suspect start the car up and back up or go forward? We've seen stuff like that happen before. So it's safety first for all of those officers there. But right now, with that vehicle just a little bit closer, and it's hard to tell from this ground shot how close they are. But if you look at an aerial shot, you can see two vehicles there kind of in position there should that driver be able to back up. And again, it's safety first for all of those officers there on the ground.
And they're gonna essentially cinch up that area from the front end and the back end. And you see the white that is some sort of a sweatshirt, sweater from the driver there, and it appears that there is no movement right now.
So the focus will continue to be on that driver and trying to establish some sort of communication with that driver, including possible with crisis negotiators helping with that process. In the meantime, let's officially begin the Fox 11 News at 5.
Good afternoon. I'm Christine Devine here with Alex Michelson and Rick Dickert as we're watching yet another pursuit, the end of a pursuit, this one in Diamond Bar. We've been on the air for about 45 minutes plus with this one. And what you have here is a standoff in Diamond Bar. Both directions of Diamond Bar Boulevard, south of the 60, have been blocked off for some time now as we just really, Alex, are waiting to see what happens with this suspect.
For people that are just joining us for the news, let's give you a sense of what we have all witnessed together and show you some of that video. Check this out here. This driver driving on the wrong side of the road, barely missing several vehicles, barely missing one here. But at one point, the driver does start hitting into vehicles, thankfully not head on like could have happened right in that shot that we're just look at this again, wrong side, you know, right there, almost hitting somebody and then
speed
almost hitting somebody else. This all happening in near the 60 freeway in the Diamond Bar area. The pursuit continues on. Here we go, and watch the brakes on this driver as he comes up to this intersection.
Boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
Stops. Almost a real terrible swipe there. The try for the pit maneuver, it doesn't quite work. The driver keeps going, and then you can tell that the sheriff's officers that are patrolling, sheriff's deputies, want to start a pit maneuver here, Christine.
Well, the thing is, to do a pit maneuver at a high speed like this is dangerous. There are no people, though, it seems, on the sides of the street there. No vehicles because of the center median. But watch as they do the pit. Watch here. Here it comes. Right there. It's slightly affected.
Yeah.
Right.
But against opposing traffic there. It wasn't divided there. And that's where these highly trained officers and deputies have to make that split decision.
Rick? Yeah.
And walk us through what happened here.
Right here.
And again, this is the bumper car scenario. This is the NASCAR scenario where he's just trying to bump and push and sideswipe and there's that unmarked car. That was the unmarked car, and this is where it almost came to an end. But all of those vehicles, possibly 10 to 12 vehicles that were impacted, and that's that SUV, that gray, smaller size SUV, was sitting there, and I saw the driver get on his or her cell phone and, calling 911, what have you, unbeknownst to them, that this was a dangerous pursuit that came to an end by him being rear-ended.
You got to wonder now how many people went home today with damage to their car because of this pursuit, where this driver not once but twice tried to plow his way through an intersection where cars were stopped at a light. Alex, we've covered a lot of pursuits. Haven't seen a lot like this lately.
Not a lot quite like this, and not a lot of that bumper car scenario that Rick had been mentioning. So we're now at a standstill. This is near Chevron and a Shell and a Carl's Jr. and also a McDonald's, all at this intersection here. A lot of folks that maybe were going out for some fast food or to get their gas are now spectators in this, watching to see how this is going to end. As we watch how this is going to end, we are in standoff mode. This is right near the entrance to the 60 freeway. We should let you know the northbound 60 and between the 57 is closed because of this. We believe that this suspect, a male, is the only suspect inside that vehicle, only person in there. And I can't tell if the suspect is wearing a white T-shirt or something. It's either that.
It's hard to tell what
that is. It looks like there's a little bit of movement, though.
Or the airbag, or what that is.
Yeah, there's a little. It seems like there's a little bit of movement there.
But the thing is, we don't know the status now of the driver. They are less than lethal weapons by terminology, but they can be very dangerous, and there's glass there. And so we don't know if that suspect is still in the driver's seat or climbed into the back seat. There's been not a lot of movement to signal to us that driver is just sitting there waiting, killing time.
And as we look at this, the vast majority of that damage was caused by this suspect running from police, from sheriff's deputies, trying to evade police, not pulling over like they were told, and hitting other innocent people. And it really could have been much worse.
It looks like there is some movement in the driver,
that's what I saw.
And you can also see some movement from some of these law enforcement that are speaking to each other.
And those heavily armed officers are SWAT officers. They're highly trained individuals with tactics to bring a situation like this to an end. And if you're watching from home, and you may say, do we really need this? Once again, we had the video. We showed you. This driver was going at a very high rate of speed, seeing the movement, I see the movement in the front as well, Christine and Alex. A high rate of speed, opposing traffic, could have killed or badly injured your father, your mother, your wife, or your husband. They had to bring this to an end, and one of their own deputies was hit as well, at least allegedly. That's what we're hearing of why this pursuit started, being that it was a hit and run, meaning this suspect hit somebody allegedly and ran, didn't stop, didn't pull over. Then the police came, they lit up the individual, and they didn't pull over.
Well, and the news we are just getting into our newsroom is concerns that this suspect is considered armed and dangerous, which is part of the hesitation to interact with this suspect and to keep the distance and to have the highly specialized people, all of
SWAT. And we don't know if it's a male or a female at this time. We don't know.
Earlier we were told male,
yeah,
but now we're starting to hear some other things, so I guess we will wait. Hopefully that driver comes out soon. Now, we have been watching this. There really hasn't been much that's happened here for the last half hour.
We'll go back
We
to
are
it.
going to continue to watch it. We've got cameras in the sky. We got cameras on the ground. We got reporters on the way. As soon as anything happens there, we will go back to it. But there is so much other big news today that we want to make sure to cover as well, including some encouraging news tonight when it comes to the coronavirus for L.A. County and Orange counties. Big deal here.
This really affects millions of people. Both counties are poised to move to the less restrictive red tier very soon. Marla Tejas is here with details of when and what this means. Marla.
Alex and Christine, today the State Health Department announced 9 counties moved to a less restrictive tier. None of those are right here in Southern California, but it is only a matter of time until Los Angeles and Orange counties advance. The updated
behave in this situation. And that is another reason that it seems like law enforcement is keeping its distance and trying to protect its deputies that are out there. So we are going to continue to follow this. You see all the people standing by, watching this, waiting to see how this ends. And as soon as anything happens, we will take you back to this live. We'll try to have the shot to show it to you as well. But in the meantime, there is other news today, including this about Vanessa Bryant. And by the way, we will keep this shot. So you see on one corner of your screen, that's the live picture of what's happening there in Diamond Bar. So a second that something happens, we'll take that picture full. But we do want to, on this side of the screen, bring you some other news tonight, including this, Vanessa Bryant's lawsuit against L.A. County, now picking up steam this week. The Lakers star widow getting help from a federal judge.
He ruled that Mrs. Bryant can obtain the names of 4 L.A. County deputies who allegedly shared graphic photos of the grisly accident scene, the crash scene. Laura Diaz live in downtown L.A. with what the ruling means. Laura?
Well, this means that the names and details of an internal investigation could actually be added to Mrs. Bryant's lawsuit. County lawyers had fought hard to keep the names of those deputies under seal.
For a judge to say that not only can it be released to the lawyers in the case, but that it can be released to the public is huge.
To follow the case against the 4 first responders accused of sharing highly sensitive pictures of a crash scene, we must first go back to that tragic day, January 26, 2020. That was the day Lakers star Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others on their way to a basketball tournament crashed into a hillside in Calabasas. The images were seen around the world. Vanessa Bryant alleges that 4 L.A. County sheriff's deputies at the crash scene shared explicit photos of the grisly accident, causing her and her family great emotional distress. TMZ has been covering the story from the very first moment.
To then find out that they had taken these grisly photos of her family members in their most vulnerable
Hey, Jay, sorry, say again. There we go. Okay, 10-4. We are streaming, right? 10-4, yeah, that's what it looks like. Can't open that door. No, I stay on this side. 10-4.
Lift your shit up. Oh, lift your shit up.
Well, if you drift away so we can sort of look in the window a little bit now that the window's. We'll see if there's a passenger. There you go. Okay. This is good. This is a good spot right here. Yeah. Let me see. Okay, I got it too if something happens. Okay, well, I got it queued up, so if for some reason you guys lose it or something happens, let me know. Is that Gilbert? Mike Gilbert? What's up, Mike? Yeah. We're getting exhaust. Good, lovely exhaust. Okay, TX, here we are. Not really. Yep. She has one of those hampers, like those little white hampers you get at Target on the passenger seat. She's in the back on her phone. See that? Yeah, she's on her cell phone in the back seat. Oh, you got the video? Okay, cool. Okay, got it. Let me set up here. We'll establish her. 10-4. Water in the Fire Cat. Interesting. They're probably going to spray her, huh? Yeah. That reflection on the roof is kind of different. Ten four, thank you. Yeah, keep it going. I know it's going to be hard to hold, but a little more, a little more. Right about there. That's a hard shot. It's like a trench rescue. Yeah. No, because oh boy. Whatever they're going to do is going to be on the driver's side, and then she's going to either come out the passenger side. So we have both shots. Yeah, they got another bit. Yeah, I'm using our 6th axis to spin the camera around just to get a different look. We're shooting directly straight down. Looks cool though, huh? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's slide off so we're shooting into the passenger window. I already did. I pulled out and then went to mode 2. You couldn't see it. 10-4, thank you. Okay, 10-4. We're setting up to look at the passenger side. Cool. Watch that street light. Yeah. Where are we shooting? Yeah, maybe just. Yeah, just slide left a little bit. There we go. Okay, 10-4. Hey Jay, I'm going to add a little bit more gain. How does this look? It looks really grainy on my end. Does it look okay on yours? Okay. What about this one? Okay. 10-4. It's like magic. And then here's a. Okay. There's a digital noise button too. You can turn on and kind of soften it. Gets rid of some of that grain. See? Yes. Got it. I see the gas mask going on. Right to the camera. Okay. Oh boy. Thank you.
child with her, Colleen.
I don't know, because I feel like this stuff a white shirt.
No, look at the way that child is in the car. The suspect is still in the car. That's where they're going now.
Yeah, that's what it's meaning. I think, this poor little girl.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, heart just goes out to her.
Well, we want to be very clear about this. The sheriff's department has been very careful in how they handle it, because for the very reason they're concerned that there might be a child in the car. And that's why they use all of these other sources. And they've been very careful with it. Just you can tell, the little girl thrown out of the car, they grabbed her and moved her out of the way. And then the personnel now went with the car to pull the woman out. She may be going through some sort of a psychological episode.
Something. We're just learning that the little girl is 9 years old. That was such a key day, David. The parent, when you saw her, when you saw the LA County Sheriff, she's going up to her, and all she did was put her arms around her. Oh, my heart. This poor little thing. So she's getting water. They're really comforting her, which is wonderful. They're being so gentle with her, and they are being gentle with the female suspect as well. I noticed that they are helping her. She went to the side. She's right there with her leggings on. Yeah. So
I think they might know that there was a child in the car. Maybe they may not have thrown our shotgun less lethal in to shatter the window if they had known it ahead of time. We just don't know. But they still use the gas. So it'll be interesting to get a debrief on attacks here and what's happening. But the good news is they're both out of the car and they're both safe right now. Granted, they're probably very uncomfortable with the gas. But the gas worked. It got them out. There was concern that this woman could have a weapon on her. They did think that there's a possibility because of the way she was driving, the way she started hitting people with her car, that maybe she was having some sort of a psychological episode and she needed help.
Yeah, earlier, David, I think it might have been happening when you were on the newscast earlier today, because you've been watching this for well over 3 hours. But you noticed that the female suspect started putting on clothes, like adding extra layers of clothes. Yeah, exactly. So you see that there's a lot of items in this car. It was definitely filled with clothes, and when they came out, obviously covered themselves, or at least the little girl looked like they had covered themselves with the clothes to try to kind of do a barrier between the tear gas and their faces. But clearly, they only kept them safe for so long, and then they had to come out. But again, we did see that. I'm not sure it's will be able to see this video of the little girl growing out of that car. She came out down she was exhausted.
They're continuing to look at the car to make sure they haven't cleared the car just yet, just in case there might be something else there. Perhaps a person. They need to look at the trunk as well. We believe that woman right there with the light colored jacket on, that might be the suspect. That might be the driver, but we don't know for sure. Let's run that video now of this is moments ago, and we saw this little girl, 9 years old, coming out of the car, and look at her.
Oh, see, that just gets you. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, at least she got help right away. She's out of the car now. And who knows what the circumstances were if she wanted to get out sooner than that. Now they're going in and getting the woman out. We believe this to be the driver, but we can't say for sure. You see others these looking at the car to make sure it's clear. They're still looking at it. They still need to open it up and make sure. But we believe those are the two people in the car. Which is interesting, Colleen, because while the pursuit was underway, we thought the possibility was there that there could be more than one person in the car. Somebody had seen the first person.
Well, because when you did hear that there might be a child inside, you're hoping it was just one, and you just hope it was this little one right here who is obviously really in need of water right now. I started to grab the bottle of water and just try to get as much down as she could, and I'm just cold. Oh, it's
had the depth surge, it's probably wet now and cold. It's a very cold night, which we'll talk about that as well. But I think we're seeing this come to a peaceful conclusion. There's been a lot to analyze. And this has been a long afternoon here in Diamond Bar, despite right as 60. That's the driver. Just watch the violence here where she just insists on going through, hitting multiple cars.
That was the shocking part to see, just going in spots where you just couldn't make it through, and her forcing her way through, like you said, and going at such high rates of speeds. I think at one point you said Air 7 clocked her at going around 80 miles per hour on city streets. So it was dangerous. It was probably a very scary situation, even for the driver. I mean, any of us who know when you go a little too fast, you get a little unsteady on the road. It's scary, but I do feel I feel for the driver, and I feel for the child inside the car, because it had to be a very tense last few hours trying to stay inside the car. And like you said, you don't know what the little one was trying to do, if she was trying to get out, if hostage negotiators were talking, if they were, or anyone was negotiating.
They did
with
have
driver.
a crisis negotiation team on the scene, and which we often see, especially when they bring out SEB, the sheriff's SWAT team, they'll bring out a negotiator as well. Hopefully that paid some dividends. And maybe they had some idea that this little girl was with her.
Yeah, and it does show you just in general, because, as we see a lot of these pursuits, normally a passenger would get out of the car and they would put their hands up, and then if it was an adult passenger, but you could see this little girl was just like, please, I need help. And it was just so obvious.
That is the driver right there that we believe drove that vehicle into a number of cars. And this all started in Diamond Bar, not far from where we see this right now, where the driver hit a number of vehicles. In fact, a number of collisions occurred right in front of the Sheriff's Department headquarters there, and one of the vehicles being a sheriff's deputy's, where we believe, at least in the early reports, were that a sergeant in the L.A. Sheriff's Department was injured in a traffic collision, and then she took off and the pursuit was on. Yeah,
obviously there has to be something somewhat unstable going on, right, with that driver, because once you hit a sheriff's vehicle, you really do need to just pull over, because it's pretty bad at that point, let alone smashing into, I don't know, at least a half a dozen